So in my book, again, I also talk a little bit about photography and what it can teach us in life.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, including yourself, downplaying that kind of a shift that you took. I was just watching from outside in as a friend, and that's why I took some of the pictures and make them travel a little bit and go places that you couldn't take them. But I mean, I think you even went to Antarctica to also do a bit of photography there.
I think you're referring to when I went to Patagonia.
Yeah, Patagonia.
Also the end of the road, end of the world. But,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, who does that? That's like there was a picture I think you took. I can't remember that animal.
The puma.
The puma from Patagonia in that icy kind of cold place. That's like, so you can go that far for pictures. I mean, this is very special. Yeah. So Tsepi, I don't know if you got a question or two, and then we give Bruno a moment of revenge to ask us one or two questions, and then we can close. And maybe also a moment to talk about your book, because you are published author.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Off the Clock.
How do you deal with stress? How do you handle that?
Coping mechanism that I have is I go for a run.
Manage stress by obviously being moments like this. Directly saying I'm going off the clock.
Just even a night out.
I'm listening to my favorite music. I go into one of the studios at the gym and I dance.
Sip cocktails and rest and just do nothing.
Yeah, I ground myself spiritually.
The right amount of stress is good.
Welcome back to Off the Clock. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, follow us, love it. Today we have Bruno Olierhoek, a YPO good friend of mine. I think we met a couple of years ago and we stayed in contact. So Off the Clock is a leadership podcast which is there to demystify people like you who are larger than life, tall and intimidating. But also, we're not here to look at how much your company is making, how much pain you get from doing your work, but more work-life balance. What do you do to relax? And I know you've got a lot of hobbies and things to do and plenty of children and very supportive wife. We want to know into that. But something that is very, very special that we do here is we normally very gracious, allow our guests to introduce themselves the way they know how. So, Bruno, who are you?
Well, thank you, Peter. And I would say I first have to say I'm a proud father, husband. And in terms of work, I'm currently vice president with Seaboard. Seaboard, it's a Fortune 500 company. We are trading and milling and also having downstream products, a bakery, pasta and different products that you can make from flour.
Okay.
Former chairman and CEO of Nestle in the East and Southern Africa region. And since I published my book, also author.
Okay, published author. Wow.
Nice.
What a track record. Just again, follow up on personal story. You said you're a proud father, husband. How did you meet your wife? Just let us in a little bit about that, because we normally quiz our guests on that romantic journey that they traveled.
Yeah. So actually, I grew up in the Netherlands.
So you're Dutch.
So I'm Dutch, but my mother is French. And
Okay.
so I wanted to experience also life in France. So I went to study in France. But then I was always fascinated with the developing world. And I wanted to know more about it. So I went to Indonesia. And that is where I met my wife. So my wife is Indonesian.
Okay.
And then subsequently we moved from place to place. Currently I'm in my 12th country.
Look, I mean, I think you're very high level there. Let us in some more details about how you really met your wife, not the country in which you met your wife.
You want the full story, all the details?
Yes, and why you were in Indonesia? How did you? What were you doing there?
So this was my first job as an expat, as a young expat with Nestle. I was 21 years old.
Okay.
And in fact, and when boys and girls want to go out, it's difficult. And the first couple of times they go out, they actually don't go one-on-one together, but it's a whole family affair. So in fact, my wife's cousin wanted to go out with a friend of ours. And so she told him that she would take friends and family to come with her. And so my friend said, I'm not going to go alone. So he asked me, Bruno, would you like to join?
Okay.
And so it was actually their
Arranged.
date where I met my wife, who was the cousin of his date. And they never made it, but here I am now more than 25 years married.
So you made it.
Oh,
I made it. Life is full of mysteries.
interesting. Yeah. Okay, that's nice. Actually, they call it, and maybe it's a bit of a joke, Mr. Steal Your Girl. So you were basically Mr. Steal Your Girl at that time.
Well, so my friend wasn't planning to go out with my wife. He was going out with my cousin, and my wife was just accompanying.
Oh, she was accompanying.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
So you
yes.
don't
We
deserve
didn't
that
steal
time.
anything.
You didn't deserve that time.
Yeah.
But do you become Muslim?
Yes, Alhamdulillah, I converted a few years
Alhamdulillah.
after meeting my wife. After studying the religion first.
Was that an easy transition, or because of love, you were kind of going through that slippery slope?
So I see that with this podcast we put everything on the table, which is great. So the full story is that my father and my mother had different religions,
Okay.
and so they brought up their children, my brother and myself, saying that you can choose your own religion.
Oh, okay.
And I took it very seriously, and so from a young age I read the Bible, and I studied the Greek classics and studied Buddhism. But I'd never studied Islam, because back then in the 80s, in the 90s, Islam in Europe was still relatively small.
Okay.
But then when I moved to Indonesia, it's the largest Muslim country, and I saw how people live their lives in a very tolerant way and in a very beautiful way. And so that's where I then started to read the Quran, and I was blown away by the fact how liberal it actually is, how moderate, and not at all what I had in mind growing up, looking at the TV,
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, after studying, it was an easy decision to make.
Okay.
Yeah.
So TV was not helpful, but when you moved to Indonesia, you experimented that firsthand, and it was making it easier for you to transition.
And there's a big lesson for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Don't just watch TV and think that you know it all. You have to go and experience things for yourself, make up your own mind. And then you have an opinion that is based on reality and not just on what other people say.
Yeah.
Go on the ground.
And just to
Yes.
clarify, your parents were very open to all religion, or just the two that they were following at the time? So like your dad and your mom.
So when they said choose your own
Yeah.
religion, probably they had in mind one of our religions, but
Yes.
that's not what they said, and there was no small print. So, but I did ask them before taking on Islam, and my parents said that look, all the religions are good. They all teach you the values of life, but we want you to choose because you really believe it's a religion that suits you, not just to get a piece of paper or to get married. So they fully supported me in converting to Islam.
Okay. And in terms of, I mean, now that you're a dad, is this also sort of values that you instill for your kids as well, to choose their own religion? Does your wife also feel the same way?
So when both parents are Muslim, the children kind of get born into the religion.
Yeah.
But the religion itself, God literally says that in life He encourages every individual to use their mind to observe and make up their own opinion on things. There is no hierarchy in Islam. You know, some religions have strict hierarchies before you reach God, whereas in Islam it's directly every individual has his conversations with God. And so, that is one of the things that made it easy for me to choose this religion, because it was so empowering. So those are the values I also pass on to my children.
Okay.
So you mentioned earlier when I stopped you that you've kind of lived in about 12 countries around the world. And I assume that, how many children you got? 3?
3.
I assume that they were all born in different countries.
Yes.
With different circumstances and even different external influence and stimulation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
They're citizens of the world.
But I mean, that obviously could have either enlightened them from a religion, culture standpoint, or you didn't see any of that through that journey.
Yes, I mean, they are having a huge experience and different perspectives because they grew up moving every 3 to 5 years. That was the life I chose myself. So I chose this career because I wanted to keep changing perspectives and moving from place to place. I assumed that for my kids, it was something that they would find normal because they were born in this life. But it was very interesting. Just a few years ago, I had a discussion with my eldest son. And he actually told me, you know, Dad, moving from country to country for us as kids was also at times hard, you know, leaving behind our friends and starting over again.
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. I mean, they live their own life, but I'll think so because some people marry their childhood friends. And, you know, you moving from 12 countries, you do not leave a good chance for them to deeply connected anyway. You know?
Yeah. You know, different lives with pros and cons. But I remember when we were living in the Philippines and we were gonna move to Switzerland. I went to the farewell in the class of my son, and I remember how he was standing in front of the classroom and telling all his friends, you know, I'm so excited because we're gonna move to Switzerland and it snows there in winter. We're gonna go skiing. And so it was really like matter of factly, he was already kind of explaining his new house. And also what surprised me was the reaction of the other kids, because it's of course an international school. So most of the kids go through these kind of life changing every couple of years. And so it was a very open debate about, so what does Switzerland look like, and how exciting. But yeah, I mean, the end of the day, my son said sometimes he missed having his cousins around, having to start again. But then, of course, also being an adult now with more perspective, he also realizes how fortunate he was to be able to, at a young age, witness all of that. You know, my youngest one was 17 and had already lived in Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. Not many kids can say the same. So it comes with pros and cons, like everything in life.
We actually interviewed another CEO on this very sad podcast. He was almost about to cry when he was relating, you know, his experience. And he was also talking about, you know, in the moment when he was doing it, how exciting it was, But the fact that he couldn't really have a lot of permanent relationships that were cemented, it's like 4 years here, 4 years there, 4 years there, and was quite a challenging at the end for his memories and everything else. And a friend of mine, Peter, as well, has got one son who was born here, the American, went to school here. In fact, he's telling his parents that he's 80% South African and only 20% American because 10% each. But when he had to leave and go to university in Rhode Island in the US, he felt that his life was like really falling apart, losing friends, including girlfriends.
Yeah.
And it was like, you need a shrink in the house now.
Yeah.
Type of a thing.
Yeah.
So it's not, as you say, it's got a pros and cons, but they are equally heavy. Those upside and downside.
What I believe is one of the pros of living as a family in different countries is that the continuity is the family. So the family becomes very tight.
Yeah.
If I see, even though my kids are in different countries, they always are in touch. They always meet each other. My family is in more than 7 countries, but we also try to meet up somewhere in the world. And so you become very intentional
Sorry,
about...
did you say your family is in 7 countries?
Yes.
What do you mean? You mean your son, your daughter, the other son, and they all live somewhere else?
Including also my uncles and aunties.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah.
not just my... we're just 5, 3 kids, my wife and myself. But I think that, again, everything is about perspectives. And even though you move countries, it doesn't mean that you lose your relationships. Here we are. We haven't physically met in the last 2.5 years or so.
Yeah.
But we've spoken every year a couple of times, and it feels like I was with you yesterday.
Yeah, but also I think you can chip in. I was told that I'm an exception, more than the rule. I'm very prolific in keeping relationship and connecting, more than the average guy. So if you're my friend, you're in good hands.
Yes. So maybe I'm a little bit like you, Pete, because my childhood friends, we still are on the WhatsApp.
Okay.
I just congratulated today the son of a friend of mine, that I met when I was 12.
Nice.
And if you ask me from my mentors, my main mentor is actually my first boss. This was more than 30 years ago, and we still speak on a monthly basis.
Wow.
So I've got many connections in different countries. Of course, some you talk to more regularly than others, but I'm fortunate to travel a lot for work, for pleasure with the family. And we always make it a point to try and hook up again with old friends and keep the connections alive, because that brings us joy.
So maybe a follow-up question that's more related to that, but not exactly that is, I've been counting countries that I've been, kind of globally, and Africa. So my last count, which was obviously the correct count, I've been to 44 countries on the continent. Globally, how many countries have you been? I know you got very excited about photography journey that you took, and we can talk about it later. How many countries? Not where you lived, the 12th, but where you've been.
Yeah.
Have you been keeping score, or you don't care?
I have not been keeping score. People have asked me this question a few times. I guess it must be around 90 countries or so, maybe more. I've not kept count, but I lived 18 years in Asia, so I've traveled all over Asia. 18 years in the Netherlands, and traveling across Europe, and in Africa I must have also done over 30 countries. But I've not tried to keep because if you go on a meeting to a country and it's airport, hotel room, meeting, a few dinners, and you go out, yes, you've been in the country, but do you really know the country? So I think what's more meaningful is those countries where you've had the time to really explore, be with the people, and learn about their perspectives, more than just stamping your passport.
Yeah, look, I mean, when I travel, I try to kind of, the business is in the boardroom, but the customers are outside, and the culture and the social skills are outside, where you connect people
Exactly.
as a tourist or over a meal or something, just to get to understand. And of course, I mean, other countries you tend to do more. I mean, for instance, attending funerals on the continent just to see how, different cultures do things, and going places where tourists don't go, like in Kenya, going to Kibera, and those places, and try to understand the slums over there and here, or West Africa or other places. Our guest, it's an Egyptian guy, and I was just discussing how deep I've traveled into that country, just trying to connect with, the country, not the business, but understanding
Yes.
what a day-to-day person goes through.
So those visits is what we need to count, not just
Boardroom,
the
in and
number.
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just a question on that, I think maybe for the both of you, because we're living in such a virtual age, a digital age, a chat GPT age, is it still valuable? And I gather from the conversation that it is, but is it still, and what are your thoughts on it? What have you learned from it to travel within the work context? Like, what sort of value has it brought to your professional career in terms of, growing within the company, etc.? Because I just feel like now, a lot of things that were maybe catalyzed by COVID, it's just, you get to sit at home, you get to work virtually, you get to Google what's happening in another country. You don't necessarily get to go. But I get the sense from the conversation that there's still so much value in seeing and exploring and meeting the people. So what sort of lessons have you guys learned that you feel like this is absolutely, it's a must for us to continue to travel?
Yeah, so this podcast is not giving enough time to talk about, to answer your question properly. But no, I think that, we talk about the VUCA world, that the world is changing so fast with technology and other changes. And so you have to keep up, and to keep up, you have to innovate. And to innovate, you have to have new ideas. And new ideas mean different perspectives and being able to make links that other people haven't been able to make. And that is exactly what traveling gives you. You get to see, you talked about funerals, that a funeral in one country people wear white, in another country people wear black. Some funerals people want to be very joyful, in others the contrary. And of course there's no right or wrong, it's still a funeral. So this is what you get to witness when you're traveling, the different perspectives on similar topics, and you realize it's not black and white. It's not Democrat or Republican, and we have to fight. No, it's about understanding the differences, valuing the differences, appreciating all of that. And so a lot of the misunderstandings in the world is, I think, due to the fact that people haven't traveled enough, haven't tried to see the other side, and so that perspective, looking at things from different sides, has many benefits, and on top of that, it's absolutely my joy to discover new foods, new sights, new sounds, and I always want to try and capture those memories.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, I mean, for me, if you give me a chance, which I really get, is my experience have been great in the travel. The internet, the WebEx, the Zoom, the Teams don't give you a deep connection, even with your colleagues, company to company. So if I were to go to Holland and meet up with, or Netherlands, meet up with Bruno a few times, we connect very deeply. And I mean, you've seen some of my friends come from very unusual places. like Jan Blazek, it's a Czech Republican guy. We met once in Berlin. We didn't meet before. He just felt the connection as a Peter, you my brother. And we connected in a way that was dangerous. He came to our house and came to this country many times.
I remember.
You don't do those connections. And he also, I think, is built that way, liking the connection. He came to visit us and say, I want to see African traditional wedding. I want to drink the Ntombo tea, the traditional beer. And you connect that way. But in a company, you work for Visa card. If you got a colleague that is in Dubai or the Netherlands and you met them personally and you ask them for a favor to share, they're doing to not to a number, to a piso, to a person, to a friend. So the travel, the connection on the ground is very important, you know. So when you got a Ghanaian friend or West African friend and saying, my uncle passed away, we're going to bury him 4 months, you understand. But if you're South African, like, you know, next week, you know, so
And the Muslims next day.
next day, Muslim next day. So those connections, you don't just make them. But then when you've been to, for instance, Ghana, to those places, how they interact with the dead or they deal with that aspect of the death, it's completely different. I mean, I was in Kenya, my very few travels to Kenya in 2003, and I was seeing they were carrying a coffin on a matatu. Matatu is a taxi, kumbi, and people were in. And I was like, you know, was like, you don't do that, you know, but it's just fine in that culture, probably even in subculture of, you know, the Kukui or whatever culture, because there are many tribes as well. So, you know, it's just so deep. You know, companies that say, oh, no, we've got a Zoom or WebEx, you don't have to travel, they're crazy, you know. As a CEO, I always invest in people traveling and understanding things better and connecting, to your point earlier, that, you know, going into an airport, boardroom, eating good food and restaurants that is curated gives you probably 5% of what's going on. You know, to get the rest of 90-80%, you need to get out there and connect with the customers. I remember in 2015, when I was at BD, the company said, Peter, look at opening an office in Nigeria. We can decide whether it's Abuja or Lagos, or also let's look at Iran as well, because they just, by the way, opened OFAC license are on the way. Go check it out for us. And then I said, yeah, I'm going to check them out. But that year, I think I went to Nigeria 10 or 11 times in 1 year. And when I said we're going to profile the country, but I want all the 20 executives who are going to be part of the decision-making to come to Nigeria and spend 3 days. I'm going to take you to the local hospitals. You meet the professors, the medical research in Nigeria, and you travel the streets and understand it, and then we make a decision. And initially, the risk department in the company was like, no way, you're taking the most important people to Nigeria? Are you serious? Yes, I'm serious. For the purpose of this project, if you're going to make a durable decision, they need to be on the ground. Otherwise, we don't
The real
make it.
place.
Yeah.
And initially, they said, Peter, can we at least have the first meeting, kind of a high-level intro in Vancouver? I said, yeah, let's do it in Vancouver. So flew to Vancouver. We did the meeting there. But the real meeting to decide whether to go or no go was in Nigeria. And guess what? They met the professors. I even brought in McKinsey, Deloitte, and UPS, the parcel company, to share testimonials about how is it like to do business in Nigeria. People who've been there 10, 20 years, and you have to really change the way the company works. And the verdict was that we're not going to set up in Nigeria. The business won't be accessible to us because of the way we think, the way we do things as a company. We are going to say no to this one. So you can't do those things without really traveling.
Yes.
How,
In fact,
Yeah.
the Japanese in their Kaizen management philosophy is continuous improvement. They have a term they call go to Gemba, which is go to
Okay.
the real place. So if you want to make an improvement, you cannot do it sitting far away in a room. You have to go and meet the people, see what's happening, the real place. So yeah, I agree with you.
So most companies that have manufacturing or packaging or logistics, they like to use their Gamba walks or
Yes,
Gamba
yes.
projects where you're on the ground and see how the process works. You know, the flow, how long does it take for an order to come in the system, packaged, and get to the customer? You have to Gamba it and do it.
Yes.
So,
Wow, go to Gamba. I did not know that. Okay.
so
I love it.
So, back to you, Bruno. I mean, traveling and living in 12 different countries. How's like good cuisine like for you? I mean, what do you like eating?
I like the food of the country. So it's like asking, what's your favorite country you've lived in? I never answer because I try to enjoy every country, whatever there is to be enjoyed. So the same with cuisine.
All right, let me ask again.
Yes.
What cuisine stood out for you, like out of all of them? Because I think you're trying to be political.
No. This is honestly what I believe.
But I mean, what stood out of the cuisines of all the countries that you've been, like that stayed with you?
Like, is
Look-
there a day where you wake up and you're like, I miss...
That's
Indian food.
that's the problem. If you go and I miss South Africa as a country because it was so great, then wherever you are, you're not fully enjoying. If you say I miss Indian food and you're living in Indonesia, then you see. So don't do that. It's about being present and enjoying what you have, not always trying to want what you don't have. And I love Indonesian food, but I love Indian food, Pakistan food, Japanese food, African food, French, European. It's just when I go to a place, I know which part of the cuisine I like. And my kids also, by the way. I remember when we moved to Switzerland and I had to travel to Korea, my kids were saying, just by the way, Dad, don't forget to bring back some kimchi. And they were little kids, less than 10 years old.
What is kimchi?
But they knew what kimchi was, which is a very typical food from Korea. It's a fermented coal with spice.
Okay.
So it's a very typical and quite an acquired taste. But for them, because they'd lived in different places, they even know which part of the food in different countries they enjoy.
Yeah, I guess it's just like McDonald's because I remember earlier on when I was also at BD, had distributors in Mozambique, Maputo and Kampula and other places, and some of the managers were coming to Joburg and say, please bring us McDonald's, which I don't want to say any more about that.
I also enjoy McDonald's, but it's not the most typical of South African foods.
Yeah, I thought you'll say barbecue, but yeah.
Braai, right?
Yeah, right.
Biltong.
The meat, it's, I think we have the best meat, probably, I don't know, ahead of Brazil or Argentina or whatever, depending on.
No comments.
The most common question that we ask people like you, and also I think travel bring a lot of insomnia, but it's about the sleep. How many hours of sleep do you do a night that is enough to carry you the following day?
I'm extremely particular about my sleep, and I really try to always be rested and have minimum of 8 hours. And I remember in the beginning of my career, when around 9 o'clock I was starting to feel tired, I really felt that, why do I have to sleep so much? And I saw my colleagues able to go on till late at night, and the next morning they were still working again. But I've realized over time that it is really important to sleep enough and to be well rested, and there's no shortcut. Nobody can live on too few hours of sleep. And so something that I thought was something, my weakness, now I see as my superpower, that I always make sure that I sleep long enough.
Okay, interesting. 8 hours, because we've interviewed many CEOs like you, and the question of sleep keeps on coming again and again and again, and the answers differ from the last one was 2 3 hours, 4 hours to you the highest. You're doing better than anybody else I've met so far.
Yeah. One thing that
I mean, don't feel guilty.
I don't.
because-
I told you. I see it as my superpower.
because one of the things that we've kind of spotlighted has been executive and people not to use lack of sleep as a badge of honor, because you need to refuel, you need to rest and come back strong. You know, I believe in comebacks.
Yeah. So what made me realize that sleep is so important is when early in my career, one of my colleagues, I write about it in my book as well, but he was actually a professional tennis player in his youth before going to corporate life. And he made it a point to not sleep a lot. But he was always super fit, super full of energy, until one day he did have a heart attack. And the doctors told him very clearly that it was his lack of sleep that was the problem. So hearing that from someone that was healthy and fit made me realize that you better be serious about getting enough sleep.
Yeah, well, some people say, like anything else in life, there are no guarantees. Having worked in healthcare all my life, I've also seen very healthy people who are eating vegetables, eating well, and also doing Ironman, very super feed, but then having serious organ failure and dropping and going.
That's
so
right, yeah.
it's I've seen so many cases of that.
Life's a mystery.
Yeah. So, or a destiny. You never know where you're gonna go, but
Yes.
it does not stop you from doing what you're supposed to do. Do the good
Yes.
things. So
But just personally, I know that if I have had enough sleep or not enough sleep, I'm a different person at work and at home.
Why, you're a very moody person?
It's not that I'm necessarily moody, but I can concentrate less, not as long as if I'm well rested, and staying present to really understand and listen to the different perspectives and moderate the discussion. I need to be well rested to do that.
Okay, Tsepi.
Just on that, I mean, you're a CEO and you get 8 hours of sleep. There are people who are not CEOs and their sleep is impacted. Is your sleep ever impacted from work stress, from anxiety? Does it ever affect you in that way? Like in terms of like how many hours you get, or are you just a good sleeper in general?
No, of course. To sleep well is more difficult when you're under a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And stress is unavoidable, not just for CEOs, but for everyone in life, whether you're working or not. So that's why what I've tried to do is build myself a routine.
Okay.
So my routine before I sleep, which is basically reading. And it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or half an hour or sometimes a few hours. But that helps me to switch modes and get ready for sleep. And then the best moment of the day is when I can put my head to my pillow and say, now I'm going to sleep.
Okay, that's nice. And then just on that, like your ability to manage your like work-life balance, what does that look like? So in conjunction with your routine, do you detach from your phone? Do you work out? Like what else do you do in terms of work-life balance to, I guess, detach from work?
Yeah, so I really believe that it's about integration. Everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
And so my philosophy on work-life balance, maybe I can illustrate it with a little story, and that is actually in South Africa when I was with my family in the bush, and sunset, and we were all happy, and I saw this warthog rolling around in the mud, and I decided to take my camera and take a picture, and so then I said, this is also work-life balance, that you're fully present with your family.
Well, for the WhatsApp or for you?
For all, being present, capturing the moment, and so that you're with your family, enjoying that time, not thinking about your stress at work. But then having done that allows you to sleep well. And then when you go back to work, you're re-energized, new perspectives, and then you're fully present at work. So it's not about switching off. That is work-life balance. It's about switching between what matters to you. That's
like
important. That's the work-life balance that I try to pursue.
So, I mean, I've always thought when you chose the hobby or career, whatever you call it, when you decided to do photography was like probably, the best choice. When you took that photography kind of Masai Mara trip in Wapio, I think it was 2 weeks? In
1 week.
1 week.
Intense week.
Yeah, and bought the camera and worked on the stuff and worked on it and drove that. How was that like for you? I mean, in terms of, because I was watching you from outside, I thought it was life-changing.
Yeah, it was. Like I said, I've always enjoyed traveling, and I've always wanting to capture each and every moment. A little bit like Roald Dahl in his book. I was reading to my kids always, and you've got the big friendly giant that snatches the dreams and puts it in little pots, which he puts on his shelf. So when he wants to relive a dream, he takes it off the shelf, right? So for me, photography is like that you can capture all the different aspects of that moment in your photo. And doing it with your phone or with a professional camera is different. With the phone, it's less intentional. And with your camera, you really have to focus on what's the composition, how do I frame it, how's the lighting, and you really capture the moment. And then when you get home and you do your editing, you're again having to think about that moment and put all your feelings in the editing. And then when you share it with your friends, there's again the pleasure of reliving those moments. So yeah, I agree with you. That photography trip was life-changing for me. And also, like you already mentioned, I never looked back. So in my book, again, I also talk a little bit about photography and what it can teach us in life.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, including yourself, downplaying that kind of a shift that you took. I was just watching from outside in as a friend, and that's why I took some of the pictures and make them travel a little bit and go places that you couldn't take them. But I mean, I think you even went to Antarctica to also do a bit of photography there.
I think you're referring to when I went to Patagonia.
Yeah, Patagonia.
Also the end of the road, end of the world. But,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, who does that? That's like there was a picture I think you took. I can't remember that animal.
The puma.
The puma from Patagonia in that icy kind of a cold place. That's like. So you can go that far for pictures. I mean, this is very special. Yeah. So, Tsepi, I don't know if you got a question or two, and then we give Bruno a moment of revenge to ask us one or two questions, and we can close. And maybe, also a moment to talk about your book, because you are, published author.
That was actually going to be my question, for you to just share a bit about the holistic impact, your book.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So holistic impact, the Ubuntu Polder model. is where I've taken what I love about the developing world, summarized with the concept of Ubuntu, I am because we are, and also my roots in the developed world, in this case the Netherlands with the polder, where everybody had to work together to protect the dikes. If not, the sea comes and floods everything, and you're gone. And I think that's very powerful if you realize the interconnectedness in this world, and that we have to think beyond the profits, which are important, the profits of the company, but that we think beyond that, the impact that we have on society, the impact we have on nature, and that it's all interlinked. And there's this false debate that people think that it's either I go green and I'm doing good for the planet, or I make profits. And in my career, I've tried to always combine the two. And so in my book, I do share stories and case studies, upstream, midstream, downstream, across different countries and continents, how it can actually be hand in hand. And it is all about finding this win-win for everyone. And if you get that and working together, you can actually do good for the world while also doing good for the company and make business a force for good. So I wanted to share my stories and experience with the youth, because I believe that they're often overwhelmed when they watch the news, all this bad news, and that it feels hopeless and that they don't know where to start to make a positive impact. And in this book, I basically try to inspire them that it's about small steps going in the right direction, and you will have also your impact. And the system change starts with individuals making these changes. So that's why I wrote the book. I published it. I had the opportunity of speaking at the University of Pretoria, Gibbs, and many other places, conversations online, etc. And I'm enjoying that very much. So thank you for allowing me to share this also on your podcast. I was at the WEF in Cape Town.
Yeah.
I think it was 2018 or 19, something like
2018.
that. 2018. Yeah. There was one minister, South African minister, that was saying, if we want to eliminate malaria, we better cooperate because the mosquitoes don't have passports. And I think that's true for many of the problems in this world. We have only one planet, and the problems are not stopped by the borders. So whether we live in the developing world or in the developed world, we have to work together, and we can learn from each other. And again, that is why I put Ubuntu Polder together, because it's not that the solutions are either in the West or in the East. It's we need to connect it, and it's interconnected. Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions for us? Parting questions?
Yeah, so first of all, you're now with your second child coming.
Yeah.
Do you believe that some of these stories have changed the way you look at educating your children and making them grow up in this world?
Yeah, I think it's quite a difficult question because I think we're in a transitioning period. I think the way that young people are thinking about growing in companies versus entrepreneurship is shifting and changing. And I guess from a lot of the conversations, we just get to understand, that world versus, and I think my brother and I, we do this a lot where we debate, some of the things that we've taken away from off the clock, right? So, what direction we should be moving now in terms of an entrepreneurship perspective versus growing within our corporate roles. So I just think that it's such an interesting place to be, but it's also uncharted territory. It's weird to be able to raise kids, but then not know what is the right thing to do for them, right? Because we're in such a such a new space and phase and a different way of thinking in terms of these different, I guess, these two paths. So, yeah, I think I'm learning a lot from the podcast, and it's definitely starting to challenge my thinking in terms of how then do I parent or guide my kids. Yeah, but we'll see. I think I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm a new parent, so yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out, but it's definitely challenging the way that I'm thinking about it and in terms of advising them.
Don't worry, the whole life is about figuring things out, and it's not if you have children that are already adults that you can stop figuring it out. But no, it's enjoy the experience, and for me, it's interconnected. So all the leadership lessons, you can also apply them at home and with your kids. Enjoy it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much,
Time flies.
Bruno.
So now I can ask a tough question to Peter.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, so Pete, you've spent the last 2 years or so writing your book about Africa, because you're very passionate about this continent, as I am.
Yeah.
So how do you intend to go about and spread the news on your message and promote your book?
Yeah, so, first of all, thank you for being kind of a partner in the journey, because we kind of started thinking about writing the book at the same time. And I took a lot of endurance and inspiration as well from me when I said, I can, I will, I am doing the book. In terms of my intentions for the book is, my book is a business book. And I've been very deliberate while I wanted to share a little bit of my life story. I came from nowhere in Africa. I traveled to 44 countries on the continent. I've been very deliberate about my observations, my connections, very prolific in spending time on eating food at different, parts of the continent, but also trying to understand how people do things. So as a business book, I was very deliberate in sharing the do's and don'ts. It's not like gospel, but, the name of the book is Winning in Africa, Your Next 8 Moves. So as a business or a business owner or a business leader doing business in Africa, hopefully I'll give you 2, 3, 4 moves to make you win, because there is no kind of a one-size-fits-all type of a thing.
Yes.
Whether you, as you said, you're in fast-moving consumer goods or food or telco or bank or just managing risk or something, the way business is done on certain parts of the continent is very different. And I was very fortunate that I worked for companies that allowed me to expand business from Mediterranean to Cape Town, and just meeting different cultures, religions, and understanding that what works maybe in North Africa may not work in the belly of Africa where you are today or in the South, but also enjoy the food, the music, the dance, and everything else, and the people. And a lot of all those stories are shared in that, in terms of, if you're in Joburg, you think about Diepsloot, the biggest slum area here, compared to Kibera in Kenya, or other parts of the continent, starting to really just appreciate, Africa. And I also talk about Africa, that there are probably about 5 Africas.
Yeah.
So
at least.
So if you doing business in Africa, those 8 moves, how do you move? It's not a dancing moves, but this is a business making moves.
Yes.
How do you apply them? So hopefully, I'm launching the book next month in October at Gibbs, and I'll do a couple of launches and to share those moves. It's, if you really want to win in Africa, talk to Peter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to having the book in my hands, signed by Pete himself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any more questions, parting shots, comments?
No, I'm a very friendly person, so I don't have mean questions. Just to say that I really enjoyed this podcast, and as you predicted, time flies. It went past like that. Great topic, great insights, and I can only encourage you to continue your podcast because it's really very helpful and inspirational. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you, Bruno, for making the time. We've been planning this podcast for the last 2 years, and I'm glad you came all the way from GRC and you did some work in the country and connected again. As a true friend, you lived up to your word, and thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
No, thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We take a